the duration of 20 would have brought it to 12:30.
What was that? What was that little smirk towards Brennan? By the way, did you catch that? She's kind of looked at him like it's a whole nothing burger. Don't worry, I got this.
Yes, and explain.
Understand
Yes.
this can
Sure.
handle manipulation of calls. Alrighty, now what I do.
I love her facial expressions. She's so animated. Everything she's thinking is written all over her face. It's quite fascinating.
And you note that John O'Keefe's phone registered 80 steps at 12:21:10. Did I read that correctly?
You did read that correctly.
So you've been on this case for 2 years.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to Buckle Up, It's the Law. Folks, today we are going to continue with the Karen Reed trial in Massachusetts. Today, folks, we are going to do the digital forensics expert and her clash with the defense. This one is going to be very interesting, folks, so buckle up and let's dive right into Dr. Jackal and Ms. Hyde. Let's go.
36, duration 20.9 or 20.398 seconds. Did I read that correctly?
That is absolutely correct.
So if you look at this data point in your report on page 13, the steps began at 12:31:56, but they ended 20.39 seconds later at 12:32:16. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So therefore, your statement in your conclusion, if you could go back to 50, and this is in your conclusion, your statement there is that the steps, the mobile phone is used with activity, including steps, until 12:31 a.m. EST. That should read until 12:32:16, correct?
It depends on your interpretation of interaction. As a user is walking, they're not actively interacting with their device. It's their movement that is. It's not direct interaction with the screen. But
Okay, so just for the record, folks, we are diving straight in the middle of a very heated cross-examination. You can tell that Alessi is not pleased with Dr. Hyde. She seems to be kind of like very defensive. He's being very aggressive. So let's see where this all leads and how this unfolds.
I would agree to your view that that could be interpreted as needing an additional 20 seconds.
Isn't the more correct way to state the conclusion that the active interaction when it comes to steps is not calibrating using the screen, but the phone is calculating steps taken. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, but that's not interactivity with the device.
I understand,
Yes.
but the sentence reads includes steps, and the more accurate way to have stated that would have been to put 12:32:16 instead of 12:31 a.m.
So basically, Alessi is challenging the veracity and accuracy of her report. That's the TLDR.
Correct?
I'm sorry, you just said 12:30. I did this to the minute, not to the second. Could you rephrase what you were citing?
Well, I'll state it again.
I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So isn't the more correct way to state this important data point in your conclusion, instead of saying active interaction with the screen and steps, etc., until 12:31 a.m. EST, the 12:31 should be 12:32 because the steps that you have on your page 13, by what you concede, is the duration of 20 would have brought it to 12:32:16, correct?
What was that little smirk towards Brennan, by the way? Did you catch that? She's kind of looked at him like it's a whole nothing burger. Don't worry, I got this.
That depends. I believe either is a correct way to state that. Based on interactivity, based on your interpretation, your definition is more correct.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank you.
okay.
And it's not my interpretation. I'm reading from your report, correct?
Your interpretation that 1232 is a more correct representation of interaction is based on your theory that interaction concludes when the steps end. And I'm saying both would be acceptable.
Okay, so let's follow up on this.
Sure.
She's so snarky.
Isn't it correct that it isn't my theory when the steps ended?
Oh, it's not,
if I
agree.
could just finish,
Please,
because if
absolutely,
we
sorry.
talk over each other, the stenographer's not going to get both of us. Thank
Agreed.
you. So,
By the way, this is calming behavior. Any behavior analyst will tell you this is like trying to get the blood flow to kind of slow down. She is extremely stressed right now. Very, very, very stressed. This is very common behavior. Anytime you have anxiety, by the way, folks, just take a finger. I swear to you, this is the most ridiculous thing. Just take your finger and just put it here. Don't even press. And your anxiety will be lessened. I learned that in law school, way back when stress was rampant, of course. And just literally just taking your finger and just placing it down here, and all of a sudden you start calming down. I still can't explain why, but yeah, that's calming behavior right there. She's extremely stressed. Dr. Hyde.
it's not my theory. It's just the simple math from an entry you've made on page 13 that the steps began at 12:31:56. They ended 20.398 seconds after that, which just doing the simple math is 12:32:16. Did I do the math correctly?
That is correct.
Okay,
I'm not
thank you.
debating that.
Thank you very much. So now what I'd like to do is to go to page 1528 of your report.
Do you have my page number for that? I'm sorry.
Yes, and I appreciate that you go page number, so I center in on the lower one, then I'll go immediately to the one. So it's your page 6, Ms. Hyde.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
If you could please go to Apple Health Data Steps. Mm-hmm. And we've been talking about steps because they're important enough that you put them in a report, correct?
That is correct.
So let's go to an important data point, therefore, in your report, in the chart, which is the second entry, which is, as you've stated, 12:21:10 a.m. Do you see that?
I do.
And you note under the data that John O'Keefe's phone registered 80 steps at 12:21:10. Did I read that correctly?
You did read that correctly.
And those 80 steps constituted 191.253 seconds, as you state, correct?
That is what is stored in that database, correct?
And is my math correct, so that the jury understands this perhaps a little better?
Sure.
That 191.253 seconds equals 3.2 minutes?
Approximately, yes.
Approximately.
I'm doing the math in my head, so that's why I said approximately.
Right. Understood. So am I reading this entry correct, that you're stating what the data shows, that 80 steps were taken by the phone of whomever had the phone of Mr. O'Keefe? There were 80 steps taken at 12:21:10 a.m. on January 29, 2022, for a length of time of 3.2 minutes.
Oh.
That is what the phone registered.
Oh, that's right. I remember this from the first trial, I believe. Don't quote me on this, folks, and I don't remember if it was the same woman or not, but I remember the talk of the forensic analysis of John's phone. And basically, it all but proves, again, you have to assume a lot of things because the phone could have been somewhere else, it could have been in someone else's possession, but let's assume for a moment it was in John's pocket at 12:21 a.m. when he was walking away from Karen's SUV, because we know the murder occurred somewhere between 12:20 when she dropped him off and maybe like 12:50. It's like in that 30-minute window before 1 a.m. for certain. It's almost because, remember Jennifer McCabe is making all these butt dials, the 7 infamous butt dials at like 12:30 something, 12:40 something, 12:50 something. So that's the span, basically 12:20 to 12:50. That's our 30-minute window when the Alberts, McCabe's, Higgins, whoever else killed John and assisted in killing John. So we're starting out with 3.2 minutes, 80 steps taken by John's phone. Again, that's to be a pretty strong assumption, but I think a very valid one, that it was in John's pocket and John was taking these steps. 80 steps to get where? Inside the house at 34 Fairview. I mean, that is all but clear. Now, with this forensic evidence, and she's rightfully correcting, it's John's phone, and whoever was in possession of John's phone made these steps. So, but usually people carry their own phones on them, right? And we already have done Guarino in the first trial and the second trial, where he discussed how John was moving at like 0.2 feet per second, like 2 hours after he died, or his phone was. That was Guarino's extraction. So it's fascinating. I mean, again, the theory, if you take into consideration that John's phone was on him the entire time, the data shows he walked 80 steps so far, is what we know from this cross-examination by Alessi, which is masterfully done. And that shows that John went into the house, and then he was killed, probably thrown out in the back to freeze to death, to hustle along to die in the cold at 12:27 a.m., or 2:27 a.m. on January 29th. And once he is good and dead, dump him out in the front lawn. And that's why he was moving hours after his death. His phone was moving. He was being carried. And that was confirmed, all but confirmed, I should say, by Lucky, the snow plow driver, because he happened by and there was a big truck obstructing his view, so he couldn't see at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, but there was no body that he could see. And then by 6 a.m., boom, magic, we have a body. Can't make this stuff up, folks. The evidence speaks for itself.
That's what the phone registered. Very well. Now what I'd like to do is to turn to the phone of Jennifer McCabe.
Okay.
And that is, for your reports, you don't date your reports, so I can't give you a date, but it says...
It's report 3, I believe, is what you're looking at.
Exactly. It's 3. And
she's so agitated.
Bear with me, I'm accommodating your page reference, and I'll have it soon for you. It is your page 7. And let me know when you are there.
I am there.
Are you aware of an issue regarding the time of an interactive phone activity on Jennifer McCabe's phone at 5:07 a.m.? Are you aware of that issue, and particularly a communication to a person named Coco? Are you aware of that?
I would need to check in my report. May I turn to the page for
Absolutely.
that time?
And
I do
if it
see
is-
an outgoing call to someone labeled Coco at 5:07:21 a.m.
And you can tell that because in your report on page 11, you list a 5:07:21 a.m. call to a Coco as outgoing, correct?
Correct.
Have you discussed that call with any member of the Commonwealth?
No.
And again, this call is
Why
at
not?
5:07 a.m. on January 29th of 2022, correct?
That is correct.
She's a Commonwealth witness.
There is no duration listed for that call. And if you just follow my questions, if you can, yes or no. Is that correct? There's no duration yet listed.
Correct.
So what I want to do is to also note that that omission is not the only omission of durations from this report, or I'll state it differently, let me withdraw that. There is no population of the duration column for any call from 12:14:30 a.m. on January 29, 2022, all the way through this 5:07:21 call, and you don't start listing durations until 8:59:34 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, and explainable. The artifact.
I understand
yes.
Mr.
Okay.
Brennan can
Sure.
handle those on his redirect.
Absolutely.
So
Oh my gosh, she's so agitated.
there's not a population of duration of calls after numerous early calls and phone, as you call it, interactive phone activity. Nothing populated in this report until 8:59:34. That's correct?
Yes.
All right. Now what I'd like to do
I love her facial expressions. She's so animated. She's so... Like, her face is just, like, constantly... Everything she's thinking is written all over her face. It's quite fascinating.
is to turn to the 22740 artifact that was the subject of much discussion on direct. And I am going to refer to that as an artifact. Is that a parlance that is familiar to you?
Yes.
And if I refer to that as a timestamp also, is that a parlance that's familiar to you?
Absolutely.
So I can refer to 22740 as a timestamp, and you would find that parlance acceptable.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to do that. Just to
long
keep it
to
simple, I would
Nicole.
refer to it as a timestamp. Now, you've been on this case working for the Commonwealth since May of 2023, correct?
May 4th, 2023. That is correct.
So you've been on this case for 2 years, correct?
Not actively the entire time.
But you started on this case in May 2023. You issued a report in May
Correct.
of 2023, correct?
Correct.
You issued a report in December of 2024, correct?
Correct. After being rehired in November.
Right. And you issued more reports in 2025, correct?
That is correct.
So all of that activity has been on this case, correct?
All on this case. That
And
is
that's
correct.
been all on behalf of the prosecution, correct?
That is correct.
None of that work has been done on behalf of the defense, correct?
That is correct.
So let us now go to the
I love the foundation setting.
timestamp of 22740. Your opinions on what is the meaning of that timestamp have varied from May of 2023 until today. Is that correct?
No, that is incorrect.
Oh.
Let's cover that issue.
Sure.
Sure.
Let's turn to your May 2023 report.
Oh, I'm loving this. Oh my God.
Isn't it correct that the report and your findings were pursuant to a request from Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully?
Correct.
And how many interactions have you had with Lieutenant Detective Brian Tully on this case approximately?
I really don't know. I'd have to go look back at email and call logs.
Is it more than 5?
Yes.
Is it more than 10?
Yes.
Is it more than 20?
I don't know.
So somewhere between 10 and 20, would that be fair?
Again, I'd have to review my call logs. I'm not
But it
going to
was
test.
more than 10.
More than 10, I'm sure.
So the issue was your use of various forensic tools that revealed a timestamp, 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp on January 29, 2022. Is that correct? Is that a fair characterization of an issue you looked at?
Correct.
So if you could go to page 5 of that report. And I would ask that you go to the last paragraph that starts with "in the instance of the Google search," and let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
So it reads, "In the instance of the Google search, house long to die in cold, that was recovered from the write-ahead log associated with the X-Browser State DB SQLite database with the timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m. was marked by Celebrite as having this timestamp and being deleted." Did I read that correctly?
Fair. Yes.
So you use the words that Google search, "house long to die in cold," was associated with the timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m. Isn't that what your words are in this report?
In that database, they are associated. That is correct.
Right. And in terms of page 3, if you could go back, of your report, under relevant findings. It starts with, "There were 2 searches of interest that took place on the iOS device," and we're talking about Jennifer McCabe's device, correct?
The device that was identified to me as Jennifer McCabe's. Yes.
That's identified to you as Jennifer McCabe. And it's what you talked about on direct examination.
Well, what was that look at the jury like? Wow, this really hurts the government's case. He's not giving me a chance to explain. Just give me a minute. Like, let me weasel my way out of this. Like, I swear, I can tell everything that woman is thinking, and it's really fun. I don't know if you guys can feel the same way, but she's just like constantly like, that is correct, and that is correct. But if you let me explain, no, I can't explain. Okay, all right. I can't weave my bullshit theory. Bummer. Very, very, very clear what her intention is. Her intention is to try and cover as much as she can for the Commonwealth. And Alessi is about to expose her inconsistency. So she had a report May 2023, and then she had a report in December of 2024. So before the first trial and after the first trial, before the second trial, wedged in there. So something changed. Something was modified. She insists that nothing was modified, nothing was changed. And he is now spelling it out. Okay, you're saying nothing was changed? Let's take a look at it. And of course, she's going to have some snarky remark, and I can't wait to see how she tries to wiggle her way out of it. But I wonder, by the way, for the record, again, folks, I just want to say, the jury's asleep. The jury cannot follow this. The timestamps and all that, it's really not complicated, just droning stuff. You have to go through it. You have to do it. And there's maybe 1 or 2 jurors that are probably paying attention. Let me know in the comments below if you find this testimony compelling and interesting, or if you're just like falling asleep or whatever. And as you're scrolling past, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you get notified the next time we do these videos. And I do 2 a day these days. There are long form and 1 short. So 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight, 4 p.m. Eastern, and 7 p.m. Eastern. For you guys in California, that is 10 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m., all Pacific. So, yeah, let's get back to the video.
As her device, right?
Yes.
It's not a mystery as to whose it is. It's not like you don't know, right?
In direct, I also use the phrase identified to me as Jennifer McCabe.
Right, but your conclusion is the device you've been working on and analyzing for 2 years is the device of Jennifer McCabe.
That is how it was identified to me.
Do you have a different conclusion as to whose device it is?
I always am very, very careful that I did not assess the ownership. That was information that was given to me, not information that I personally assessed.
So are you uncertain as to whether the device you've been working on for 2 years is the phone of Jennifer McCabe?
The device that I have been working on for 2 years is the device that was identified to me by the Massachusetts State Police, Detective Tolley, as belonging to Jennifer McCabe when I began working and received that device, as stated in the evidence analyzed section on this same page.
So let's go, and we're talking
Love
about,
it.
again, to get back to the center of gravity, we're talking about a timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m., correct?
That is correct.
And when you issued your first report in May of 2023, the timestamp you were looking at was 2:27:40 a.m., January 29, correct?
I was looking at multiple timestamps associated with the same 2 searches.
Right. So what I'd like to do, you said
What?
multiple timestamps. What times are in the multiple category?
What I was tasked to do was to look at the times, the search, the Google search history, I'm sorry, not Google search history, the Safari history, which includes Google searches, associated with those two search terms within that 12-hour period. That was the particular task, not the task of looking at the 227, just for clarity.
Right. And I appreciate that, but my question wasn't that. My question was, I thought I heard you on direct examination, which is why I repeated the question, what I thought I heard on direct, but I'll ask you the question.
Sure.
You looked at and talked about on direct two potential times for a Safari search, which includes Google, one of which was 2:27:40 and the other one was 6:23 a.m. Is that correct?
I analyzed the meaning of those two timestamps.
Right. So we're just talking about two times.
And remember, that's the new prosecution theory and the attempts to cover up the evidence and to hide Jennifer's culpability, I guess, to the FBI. I don't know. But both, it was Guarino, now Dr. Hyde, or I call it Doctor because I keep saying Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde just because it's catchy. And there was another guy that we did, and I forget his name, of course, right now. But regardless, all three of them now suddenly out of the thin air at the end of 2024 and beginning of 2025, suddenly the House Long to Die in the Cold, or as Alessi puts it, House Long to Die in the Cold, search is now at 6:03 a.m. There's a discrepancy. We don't know which one it is. It could be 227, it could be 603 to confuse the jury. Last trial, it was all but certain. Now they've got a cover story to cover Jen's ass. Despicable.
27:40 and then 6:23. Is that correct?
So you are only talking then about the one that we're also talking about 6:24 a.m.
Okay. So we
Eastern
got
time for clarity, because some of these records are in UTC, some are in local.
Fair enough. So you've got 227:40, you've got 6:23, and you got 6:24 that you were looking at, correct?
There are other timestamps that exist in the realm of what I was looking at, but those ones, correct, are the ones that are relevant in this report.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about.
Okay,
We're just talking about this report.
Yes.
And so if you look under relevant findings, at the very bottom paragraph, you say, second sentence, a Google search for how long to die cold at approximately 11:23 a.m. and then House Long TIDIE in cold took place at 11:24.
That is in UTC. I apologize for not having the timestamp format there, but that is the UTC time. The UTC time equivalent in Eastern Local Time would be 6:23 and 6:24.
So to be clear, in your report, you wrote 11:23 a.m. and 11:24, and you didn't put UTC next
Correct.
to it, did
They
you?
should. You are correct. That
Oops.
should say UTC. That is a typo.
And
My
there's
bad.
a significant difference between 11:23 and 2:27:40, correct?
11:23 is UTC, so its equivalent in Eastern Time would be 6:23. The artifact of 2:27 is already in local time, so that is in Eastern Time. So what we would be comparing is 2:27 and 6:23 and 6:24 to be appropriate, taking into account the data storage and which ones are in UTC and which ones are in local time.
I understand your explanation now.
Perfect.
But in this report,
Yes.
there is no UTC
Yes.
time down. You have two additional times in addition to the
Yes.
two times, two different numbers added to the two, correct?
The UTC was a typo. It should say
I
UTC
don't
next to
care.
those,
I don't
and the
care.
chart shows all of those
I don't
artifacts
care.
in EST and is clearly labeled that they're
You
all
are
in
misleading,
EST.
So
lady.
you would agree that it's better.
You are misleading, Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde. You are a liar. You're trying to mislead people. You can't just, oh, I'm sorry. It's not a typo if you completely omit the time region associated with the numbers that come before it, the preceding numbers. It's like, I will say to you all, I'll see you guys at 7. Bye. And you'll be like, okay, we'll see you at 7. And then you arrive at the meeting location at 7 p.m. and you're like, where's Larry? Hey, Larry, where are you? I didn't say 7 Eastern. I meant 7 Pacific. Why would you say 7 Pacific? Why would you say 7 Pacific, Larry? That makes no sense. You misled us. No, I didn't. I said 7. I never specified. But we're in the Eastern time zone, Larry. Why would you say 7 Pacific in the Eastern time zone? We're all in the Eastern time zone. Well, that sounds like a you problem. It was a typo. I misspoke. Like, you see how ridiculous that sounds? When everything is in Eastern and all of a sudden she decides, oh, let's just randomly throw in a UTC curveball. And now she's being exposed. Hook, line, and sinker. If at least one juror is paying attention, that's all that is needed. This is crazy.
Stated to state it a different way than you have in your report.
I would say that both are equivalent. I should have had UTC there. But yes, it's easier for the audience to speak in EST. I would say forensics examiners typically communicate in UTC, but we translate for our reports. And I should have either communicated that in EST or included UTC. I will definitely contend that.
So,
Contend.
in terms of
I don't think she means contend. I think she used the wrong word. I think she means concede. I will concede that.
your May 2023 report, your first report in this matter,
Yes.
She keeps looking at Brennan,
you
swallowing.
on page 5, in
Stress.
the sentence underneath the block paragraph state, in the instance of the Google search, house long to die in cold that was recovered from the right-ahead log associated with
That's correct.
the X browser stage with a timestamp of 2027:40 a.m. was marked by Celebrite as having this timestamp and being deleted. Did I read that correctly?
You read that correctly.
Now let's move ahead to page 7 of your report. Up at the top above conclusion. Importantly, at this time, you state, testing shows great inconsistency with timestamps parsed from this file. It is, however, definitive that the page existed in a tab.
Correct.
While a definitive reason as to why the timestamp is listing the time of 2:27:40 is unknown, the time is inconsistent with the timestamps associated with the same search. Did I read that correctly?
You did read it correctly.
So as of May 2023, you said the definitive reason as to why the timestamp is listed as 2:27:40 is unknown, correct? I'm just asking, is that what you wrote?
Yes or no?
Unknown.
The answer
I
is yes.
believe that the wording here is, sorry, I know I do use the word unknown. It says, while a definitive reason as to why the timestamp listing is the time of 02/27:40 is unknown. Sorry.
So you use the word unknown, your word in your report.
Yes.
Okay, so now what I'd like to do is to
Now let's compare and
go
contrast,
on
lady.
to the first proceeding in this matter. Do you remember giving testimony in a proceeding about a year ago under oath?
Yes, I do.
Now let's get Dr. Jackal in the house.
I am now going to go to that testimony, and if at any point you would like to have a copy of that, if your honor would like, I will do it, but I'm going to start and then we'll see how it goes. So, bear with me a moment. Do you recall in that testimony stating that you processed the image in several forensic tools? I used Celebrite Physical Analyzer, and then you list many other tools. Do you remember giving that testimony?
We have a page.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan, I thought I'd given it 1-12. My apologies if I didn't. It's June 14, 2024, page 1-12.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, do you recall giving testimony about the various tools you use for this timestamp?
I do.
And do you recall stating that those tools were commonly used digital forensic tools that are very standard? Do you recall that?
I'd have to see the wording that I used at that exact time.
Would it be helpful to refresh your recollection if I showed you that?
It would be great. I would greatly appreciate that because I do not recall the precise wording, but I know that I spoke to the tools I used.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, Mr. Alessi, you offered a transcript. Do you have the whole
I have
transcript?
the whole transcript if that helps.
It might speed things along.
Agreed.
Okay.
We have one. I'll provide it. Ms. Hyde, I'm going to give you a transcript.
Thank you. I appreciate it. 113, I see it. I see it's highlighted on the copy, so I
Right,
figure
so
that's the
what I
one.
wanted to do, the reason I said 112 is that's where I
Oh,
started with my
sorry.
previous question. So I'm not going to repeat the question, but just to orient you, so you have a fair context for the questioning.
Fair.
So I started at the bottom, 112, now I'm moving to 113, and I'm starting with line 7. Do you see that?
I do.
And it says, yes, they are commonly used digital forensic tools that are very standard for other forensic examiners to use on mobile exploitation. Did I read that correctly?
That is correct.
And then if you go down to line 22, you testified in that proceeding, so it's important to use multiple tools so you can see the results from different data sets, and be able to compare those results and enhance those with manual analysis. Did I read that correctly?
You did. That's correct.
And then going up to page 114, line 5,
Slow down a little bit, Mr. Alessi.
I will, Your Honor, thank you. Yeah, that's very, very typical for me to process with multiple tools to ensure that I'm getting the most complete interpretation from forensic tools. Of course, you go beyond that with your analysis, but it's absolutely pertinent to that. Did I read that correctly?
That is correct.
And then lastly, for this section at page 114, 17, the Sanderson tool is meant to look at specific type of data structures called the SQLite database. XQLite databases are very nuanced, and this particular tool allows you to take that database and explore it at a deeper level than the other forensic tools allow. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. Now if we can go to page 124 of the very same testimony. And feel free to go back a page just so you can see to page 123 that the topic is the 2/27/40 timestamp associated with house long to die in cold. Do you
Can I
see-
have a moment just to review and get context?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Page 123, 13, but if you need to go back further, feel free.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So what I want to do is start with page 1-23, and this is your testimony. On line 16, I have them in the timestamp order that is associated with the artifact. You use that word associated again, correct? Did I read that
Correct.
correctly?
Yes.
And that's associated with the Google search "House Long to Die in Cold" in a 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp, correct?
That is correct.
Now if you turn the page of the testimony, you state back then that on page 124, line 1, the browser state DB is an artifact that speaks to when tabs are moved. So when you're using your browser and you open different tabs, you may have a search that this time pertains to the time that the tab moved. It could be lots of things. Did I read
Correct.
that correctly?
You did.
Not one thing, you said it could be lots of things, correct?
That is correct.
And then you go on in line 10, and you talk more, and then you go down to the bottom. You go down to line 20, and you testify, we cannot tell by this particular artifact what time that search occurred. Did
Absolutely.
I read that correctly?
It's specifically pertaining to that particular artifact that in browser state DB that does not tell us what time a search occurred. That is correct.
Right. So you stated, and it was your statement then, we cannot tell by this particular artifact what time that search occurred, correct?
That particular artifact.
Okay, so now let's keep going.
Here we go.
If you go to page 129 of this transcript,
I'm there.
at the top,
Sure.
line 1, 227 isn't necessarily one time when the tab was closed. That's in my report. I say it's undetermined. Remember we were just reading your undetermined
Absolutely.
in your May 23 report?
Correct.
Because there's a lot of things that can cause that timestamp to be there, including tab being moved, tab being minimized. The next sentence. I don't know exactly what caused the tab to get that particular entry, but it's not, that timestamp is not indicative of the time of the search or any URL that's visited. But the first part of it is, I don't know exactly what caused the tab to get that particular entry. Did I read that correctly?
You read 100% correctly.
Thank you. Now if we could turn to page
Hey, look at her
1.
face. Her face, she's just like, I didn't do anything wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Please disregard. She just admitted that she lied on direct examination with her second bloody report. In her first report, she said we cannot determine the timestamp. But in her second report, a year and a half later, she went even further, saying, oh, it is completely undetermined as to whether it happened at 2:27 or at 6:24. But her testimony, there it is. Her testimony. You can't change your testimony. You can change your report, but you can't change your testimony. Nice try, Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde. Her testimony is all but clear. The tab was open at 2:27, and I don't know why and how it was closed. Oh my God! Amazing work, Alessi. It took half an hour of pure testimony. This video is obviously going to be a bit longer because of my commentary, maybe about 38, 40 minutes when it's all cut up by my editor. Shout out to you, my friend. He's amazing, by the way. He's doing so much good work for us. But let's finish up. We only have a few seconds left.
But the first part of it is, I don't know exactly what caused the tab to get that particular entry. Did I read that correctly?
You read 100% correctly.
Thank you. Now if we could turn to page 130 of your testimony.
I need to object.
To what?
Right, I'll see you both.
What is the what? What is Brendan objecting to Alessi for? That concludes that portion of our analysis of Dr. Jekyll and Ms. Hyde. That was the relevant. Again, remember, I'm trying to give you guys the meat, not the potatoes. I want you guys to have the most important parts. Afterwards, I guess it wasn't as important and maybe not as interesting. Like I said, we could analyze every second of this trial. It would take us until the end of the year. And I don't want to keep you guys hostage. I want to keep moving things along. And because we have limited time, I mean, this trial is probably going to be over in about 6 weeks. So I want to make sure that we cover as much of it and, if possible, all the relevant portions by the time that it is over, so it doesn't continue bleeding over. And during jury deliberations as well, I will be continuing and finishing up analyses. I'm certain of it, because deliberations by the jury probably would take at least 4 business days, at least. So during that time, that's another time to release 8 more videos to you guys. So lots and lots and lots of stuff coming. We still have to catch up on Buchanan. We We have to catch up, I believe, on Higgins. I think Higgins took the witness stand already. I'm like 99.99% sure. Like I always say, I'm just a few days behind, and that is not by design. It's just because there's a lot of stuff to cover. I have about 2, 4, 6, 8. I have about 10 more videos in tow that will be released over the weekend. We got some text messages between Higgins and Karen. We have some more Buchanan testimony that needs to be released. And of course, we have our new witnesses from this past week. And of course, our top 5 moments. Our top 5 moments, that's going to happen probably on Sunday. We'll release that. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, everybody.